Hi, my name's Anna and I've decided to start documenting my making, whether that's knitting, crochet, sewing, whatever else I'm getting up to. And I wanted to start by saying thank you to anyone who watched my first video. I'm hoping I got most of my nervous energy out in that one and this will have a little bit more flow to it. I was really chuffed that people watched it and I got some lovely comments, so thank you, that was all very encouraging. I spoke a bit in that one about our trip to Rhinebeck, and today's video is going to be a bit about what we got up to after the show. We had a few days in the States before we flew home, so I'm going to talk a bit about Harrisville, an amazing pumpkin show that we went to, and a house we visited on our way to the airport. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. Before we get started, I should probably say what I'm wearing. This is a design called Lakeland by Fiona Alice. It was originally in Lana issue 4, but it's on Ravelry now, and I knit this in Walcott Yarn's Origin in the colour Spruce. So yeah, it's got this fun stitch pattern on the front, and then the back is plain stockinette with a really nice sort of central detail going down the spine. So yeah, I'll need it today. If you hear any funny noises or creaking, the end of Storm Bert is just heading through, so it's quite a blustery day outside, but I'm hoping you can't hear that. I'm going to insert a clip here of my view because it's quite spectacular. I've got a rainbow this side, the Cambrian Mountains straight ahead, and then a bit of flooding to the right, but thankfully it is just the floodplain. I don't think anyone's house has been got, which is a relief. We're lucky we're up on the hill, so we're soggy but fairly dry comparatively. When we were at the show in Rhinebeck, Johnny very kindly picked me up some yarn from Harrisville Designs, and he was chatting to Nick, who very kindly had invited us up to see his mill last year. So Nick is his family and him run Harrisville Designs. So we were invited up last year, but the timings didn't work. So when he asked us again this year, we really wanted to make the effort to try and get up there if we could. After Rhinebeck, we headed back to Stockbridge to stay with our friends Amanda and Alberto, who run Prado de Lana. So they make beautiful yarn from their flock of sheep. They've got a mixture of Romney, Lincoln Longwool, Rommeldale, so they're lovely. We went to visit them, the sheep, as well as Amanda and Alberto, and the sheep are amazing. So they graze nearby, and they have 2 dogs that live with them. So Hugo and Teddy are guardian dogs. They're Great Pyrenees, and they live with the flock, and they're designed to protect the sheep. So they're amazing working dogs. It was lovely to see them. We met them last year, and they help keep the sheep safe. So they ward off any wildlife, such as coyotes, and there's been some bears around recently, Amanda was saying. So yeah, they keep an eye on the sheep. So we went and said hello to them. And then there's more dogs back at the house, which was lovely. So there's Willow and Meadow, who are 2 retired guardian dogs, so they're Great Pyrenees, and Erin, the little corgi, who is hilarious. So we had lots of cuddles with them, and they were super welcoming. They threw us a big Mexican feast one night. Alberto's cousins came round and we had tacos and margaritas, and yeah, so it was lovely to hang out with them after the show. Once the stress of that had all gone, they vend at Rhinebeck as well. So I'll put a link below if you want to check out their yarn. It's gorgeous. I squished all of it. And they were also interested in going up to see Harrisville, so the 4 of us took a road trip. It's a couple of hours north up to Harrisville, which is in Massachusetts, I want to say. No, it's not. We were in Massachusetts. They're in New Hampshire. So a couple of hours north up to New Hampshire, to the town of Harrisville. Harrisville Designs have been based on that site for about 50 years now, but there's been a history of textile manufacturing and mills there since the late 1700s. And Nick and his family, who still run the mill today, have a long history. He was showing us some of the machines and things that his granddad had made whilst working there. So it's got a lot of history, and the buildings are beautiful. They've recently moved, or kind of, I think they've renovated and moved back into the older mill buildings, which are beautiful. Nick, and he very kindly showed us around. So he runs the business with his parents, and we met them. They were really keen to come and hear what Johnny was up to at his mill, Garthenor, if you don't know. So yeah, we had a lovely tour around. It's slightly different to Garthenor in that Harrisville is woolen spinning and Garthenor do worsted spinning. So I recognised some of the machinery, but it was kind of like spot the difference as we went around the mill. So I can give you a brief explanation of the difference between woolen and worsted. Woolen spun yarn favours shorter fibres. They're quite jumbled up in the yarn, and that gives it a really sort of lofty quality. It's why it blooms a lot when you block it, and it means that it traps a lot of air, so it's really nice and light, but it's very warm. Worsted spinning, which is what Garthenor do here, that favours longer staple lengths of the fibre, and they comb it all out lots through several different processes to make sure the fibres are all really aligned, which gives you a rounder profile on the yarn. It's a little bit smoother, a little bit drapier. So I will get Johnny to watch this and fact check it, but yeah, that's the sort of very brief description of the differences between the two. So he was showing us how they dye their fibre before they even begin, and then that goes through the carder and then straight on to woolen spinning. So they kind of make almost sheets of fibre, and then that gets the machine kind of cuts it into strips and then drafts it out into a sort of almost like an unspun roving, and then that gets put on the spinning frames, twisted up into single plies of yarn, and then they can go on to ply it and finish it. So yeah, it was really interesting to see their process and how it all moves through the mill. And I think Johnny added some bits to his shopping list of things that he'd like for his mill. So that was a really useful trip. We also got to go through and see, so Harrisville, as well as making yarns, are really well known for their looms. And as an ex-weaver, I can still weave, but I don't do as much anymore. I used to weave as a job. So it was really interesting. I'd used Harrisville looms at uni, so it was cool seeing where they've been made. It was a little sort of full circle moment. They had a lovely wood workshop where they sort of precision cut all of the pieces for the looms. And yeah, it's a lovely setting. So it's got a river running through, so it would have all been driven by a water wheel. Is that what they're called? Yeah. So the river would drive the mill. I didn't get any pictures on the inside of the mill because we were too fascinated by what Nick was telling us about everything, but I have got some pictures of the buildings, which I'll pop in here. So you can see lovely red brick buildings, and we again lucked out with the weather, so the trees and everything and the sunshine, it was all very picturesque. We spent a long time looking around, seeing everything, just redone all their offices. Nick has a very cool office at like the top of the building with beautiful old beams. So yeah, he was very generous with his time. We had a lovely day chatting through yarn, and he was asking sort of how Johnny spins his yarn, and I think we're hoping he might be able to come and visit us here sometime. Only relatively recently that I've learnt the intricacies of spinning wool. Living with Johnny, I get lots of insight into how yarn is made, and I think it's amazing and slightly underappreciated how many steps and how much work goes into taking fleece off a sheep into the yarn that we all love to use for knitting. And I'm sure if any of you are spinners, you'll have a slight idea of that, but it's an incredible process and lovely to see. And I think the main difference and the bit of the Harrisville process that I loved was how they blend all of the fibres. So as I said, they dye the fibres first, and then they can sort of play around with colours. So the fibre going into the machines can look like a slightly odd mix, but the way they blend it all together gives you these really interesting yarns with lots of depth and flecks of really interesting colours throughout. Yeah, we had a great time there, and of course had to visit the shop. So as I said, technically I didn't buy any yarn at Rhinebeck because it was a gift. So I used the opportunity of being in a yarn shop to indulge a bit. The shop was absolutely beautiful. It was styled really nicely, and they had obviously their own yarn. They had some Brooklyn tweed. They had some John Arbon, which was fun to see, something from closer to home. Amazing set of drawers filled with fibre for, I guess, needle felting. I don't know if you could spin with it. I'm not a spinner myself. Harrisville have a beautiful collection of patterns. They work with lots of different designers, so I had a lot of fun looking through all the samples, and one actually caught my eye. So, well, more than one, but this is the one I came home with. So this is the pattern for Hawley by Sarah Solomon. So I'd seen a Sarah Solomon design last year at Rhinebeck, and I'd bought some nightshades yarn to make that. So I bought, I think I got 4 skeins of Last Call, which is this beautiful, it's the sort of tealy version of nightshades. So I had 4 skeins of this, and I had this pattern in mind when I bought it, but I never quite got around to casting it on. It didn't quite, don't know, something about it didn't quite grab me. But then I saw this one, and so 4 skeins would be enough. I just needed the contrast colour. I'll see, oh yeah, this is I'm trying to show you a picture of it without showing you the whole pattern. So you can see there, it's got this lovely yoke design. And it looks like a really nice shape. It's got a similar neck to the one I'm wearing actually. Yeah, loose swingy silhouette, bracelet length sleeves, oversized top down round yoke sweater with simple 2-colour motif. So I just needed a contrast colour to go with these ones that I already owned. So I picked up a skein of Daylights in Caffeine, which is this lovely neutral. So I think that will be a nice cozy jumper once it's made. And then I was I got a bit, I think the yarn fumes got to me because I worked in a yarn shop for so long. And I obviously bought most of my yarn there. I had never sort of gone into a yarn shop and gone shopping as such. I've gone shopping at shows and things, but it was, yeah, I went a little bit crazy. So it was a lot of fun. I would recommend shopping in a yarn shop. So I picked up these 2 skeins of Peace Fleece in the shade Sakhalin Salmon. So I'm hoping, the sun's just gone behind a cloud, but I'm hoping you can see it's this beautiful orange with flecks of pinks and yellows and corals. And this is a worsted weight yarn, so it's 4 ounces is about 200 yards. And it's really squishy and soft. So I'm thinking a hat. I got 2 skeins just in case. I might only need 1, we'll see. But if I've got some left, then I'll make some wrist warmers or mittens or something. So I got a little set, but I just fell in love with this colour. It's right up my street. And then the other one I picked up, again, was Peace Fleece in the worsted weight, was this incredible colour called Grassroots. I feel like I've said incredible a lot, but I love this one for all the different flecks. So I feel from a distance it's quite a useful neutral. It's sort of bluey, grey, green, browns, kind of could go with lots of different things. But then when you look up close, it's got such an array of flecks in it. So there's pinks, turquoises, limes, purples, blues, reds, like all of the rainbows in there. So I got enough of this to make a vest because I thought, yeah, I can layer that with lots of different things. So that is what I picked up in the shop, which was a a lot of fun. Peace Fleece is a blend of 75% Navajo Rambouillet and domestic fine wool and 25% mohair. So they work with the Navajo people to help them market their wool from their ranches and buy their fine wool, and so that gives them an outlet to sell their lovely fibre, and then Peace Fleece gets made with that. So that's a nice extra bonus to that yarn as well. So that was our trip to Harrisville. Thank you very much to Nick for showing us around. Thank you to the lovely ladies in the shop for enabling me to add to my yarn collection. I have actually just finished my most recent project, so I'm trying to work out which of these to cast on next. Maybe an orange hat is in order. I think in this weather it is needed. After we'd spent the day up at Harrisville, we had, I think, a day or so left, full day left to explore. We decided to stay in Stockbridge because Johnny and I were both exhausted by that point, and we were having such a lovely time staying with Amanda and Alberto and their family. So we hung out there for a bit longer. We went into town and had a proper diner breakfast. Incredible French toast with an English breakfast tea, of course. And we had a wander around the town and just got some fresh air. And then in the evening, we went over to a beautiful house called Nomkeg, and they put on sort of seasonal displays in the gardens. So being the end of October, they had their Halloween festivities on. So they had filled the garden with pumpkins. I've never seen so many, all carved beautifully. It was a mixture of real pumpkins and also some sort of polystyrene ones. They'd all been hand carved, but obviously the pumpkins don't last so long once they've been cut into. So we had a beautiful wander. We went at night, so it was completely dark, and they light up all the trees and the pumpkins, and it was really lovely. It had a lovely atmosphere. I'm not big into Halloween, like it wasn't really a thing when I grew up. I lived in the middle of nowhere, so we didn't do trick-or-treating. I'd carve a pumpkin, and that was about as sort of Halloween-y as things got. So it was a lot of fun to embrace that, and they'd done the house sort of kind of spookily as you went out through the house at the end. So that was a lot of fun, and I took some video clips here. I'm afraid they're in portrait, so we'll just insert them somewhere. And you can see they had, the pumpkins were kind of grouped. There was a Disney section and a Star Wars section, and some beautiful little fairy houses made of pumpkins, and some Harry Potter ones, some classic, just silly face ones. So yeah, that was a lovely evening. And then we had our final day. We were flying out in the evening from Boston. So we drove back east and went via Orchard House, which is in Concord, just outside Boston, and that is where Louisa May Alcott lived. So she was the author of Little Women, amongst many other books, and it's one of my favourites. So when I saw that we were vaguely, it was a little bit of a detour, but vaguely nearby, we decided to head over there. So we got a guided tour around their family home, which is actually where she set the book. So it was fun sort of working out where the different scenes had taken place. And I hadn't realised that the characters in that book were quite so closely based on her family. So it was interesting to hear more about them. And it was also nice to see, I mean, I've done so many National Trust houses and castles and things all in the UK. It was really interesting to see what sort of family homes and things look like in the States historically. It was, yeah, nice contrast. So we, as I say, had a look around there on the way to the airport, and then popped from there across the city to Boston Logan International, can't remember what it's called, and flew home. And then jet lag really got me when we got back, but it was all worth it. So I hope you enjoyed hearing about our adventures. So I think that concludes my roundup of our October trip to the States. I have a couple of other ideas for videos, so I will work on those and I hope you enjoy them. Not any international travel for a while, which is fine by me. I like being at home. So yeah, if you didn't see the previous video, it will be somewhere around for you to watch if you'd like to. Otherwise, I'll hopefully see you next time. Thanks, bye.